Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May 2024 LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. A copy of today's presentation is available for download through GoToWebinar. To access the document, expand the handouts menu and then select download. We'll give everyone a little bit of time to get logged in and then we'll go ahead and get started. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. My name is LaShonda Wilson, and I am an Education Program Specialist here at OSSE. I'm joined by my OSSE colleagues across multiple divisions as we present content pertinent to policy monitoring, systemic supports, and professional development for LEA SPED POCs. Just as we know, many of you are busy closing out the 2023-24 school year. Today will be our final webinar in this series, but don't worry, we expect to roll up our sleeves and get busy planning the series for the upcoming 2024-25 school year. That said, let's get into it. We'll begin this morning with policy reminders and updates and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, monitoring updates. Then segue into transportation reminders and updates, non-public reminders and updates, and teaching and learning reminders and updates. And then finally, we'll conclude with announcements and reminders. I'll turn it over now to Christy Weaver-Harris as she reviews our policy reminders and updates. Christy?
Good morning, everybody. This is Christy Weaver-Harris. I'm the Policy Manager in the Office of Special Education in the Division of K-12 Systems and Supports. Let's get started with some updates on policy. All right, so as of July 1, the following policies will be removed from our website: the IEP process policy, the least restrictive environment, or LRE policy, the initial evaluation and re-evaluation policy. So I say that they will be removed from the website rather than rescinded or revoked, because the requirements and LEA obligations for initial evaluation, re-evaluation, IEP processes, and LRE remain in effect. Those requirements from those policies have been incorporated into Chapter 30 and in some places updated or changed or superseded in Chapter 30, which went effective 2 years ago in July of 2022. And then the procedural or guidance language that was in those policies has been incorporated into the handbook. So the policies are no longer necessary. My team is also working to reformat the current policies. If you look at them now, they're essentially like pictures of PDFs. And we'll be reposting them as functional PDFs and including information on where requirements were superseded by Chapter 30. If you have any questions about this or any of the policies, please contact my team at osse.dsepolicy@dc.gov. And as always, I'll keep an eye on the questions box during the webinar. Next slide, please. At the beginning of this school year, OSSE released the Special Education Handbook, which is a comprehensive overview of special education processes from referral to exit. We're in the process of reviewing and updating that handbook for next school year, and we would love to hear from you about how it can be improved to best serve LEAs. If you have feedback or suggestions, please send them to Alex Milson at alexandra.milson@dc.gov. Next slide, please. OSSE has partnered with DC-based company Onyx Therapy Group to offer LEAs individualized special education support services. Onyx will provide technical assistance to LEAs to support improvements in special education programming, instruction, and service delivery. These are the same or similar services that we have previously offered, but through a different vendor. And I know some of you are engaged with them already. Related questions should still be directed to OSSE via your LEA monitor. And if you are contacting Onyx or the consultant about this, please do not send student PII in the emails or in voicemails. Next slide, please. All right, so we are coming up on the end of the school year, so I want to go over some tips for preparing to close out the current school year and prepare for the upcoming school year. First, you want to make sure that you're completing necessary documentation and special programs. You want to be completing reevaluations and holding meetings that may be due over the summer. And this could be especially true for students who have transferred into your LEA where their processes or documents don't follow your LEA's calendar. Like you might have already had everybody calendared out for the year, you got a transfer student and they're completely off of your typical cycle. You want to be making sure that you're addressing the needs of those students over the summer if they have due dates over the summer. Make sure your providers are completing service logs in service capture, that students have up-to-date progress reports, PWNs, and that you are preparing summaries of performance for students who are graduating with a diploma. Although many of our schools have 10-month calendars and LEA's obligations are really year-round, so you want to be planning for continuing operations even when you have reduced or no staff over the summer. Make sure you have designated folks who can respond to records requests from other LEAs and staff that can complete LEA obligations related to C2B transition for students over the summer. So that includes receiving transition conference invitations, attending and participating in transition conferences, conducting initial evaluations, and developing IEPs for those students who are transitioning from early intervention. Next slide. And to get ready for the next school year, I want to highlight 2 primary points of prep. That's data systems and program prep. First, you want to make sure that you are submitting your timely TRFs. I encourage you to use the early access application to monitor student enrollments, support your LEA data manager in having a smooth switchover to the new school year for your SIS. Make sure folks have appropriate access in special programs, and that's another thing that you may need to work with your LEA data manager on to make sure that folks' roles in IDS are correct. And prepare for documenting the first provision of specialized instruction for students under the age of 6, consistent with DL requirements. On the program side, you want to be using all of the tools available to you to make a plan for next year. Again, use the early access app to review student data, to inform staffing, plan your calendars, and prepare for service provision. You can also use early access information on like student level information to identify gaps in educator knowledge or needed skills to inform necessary trainings or PD that folks might need over the summer. You want to identify and review certifications for physical restraint training. Most of the certification programs, their certifications last like a maximum of 2 to 3 years. So if you had folks who were trained when those requirements first came out in July 2022, you may need to get folks recertified. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. Also keep an eye out for OSSE trainings, including special programs trainings. Next slide, please. And as a reminder, here's a list of contacts at OSSE for a variety of special education issues. These are your direct folks that you can get in contact with. Something that we have noticed at OSSE is that multiple OSSE staff might receive the same question from the same person or the same LEA. We do coordinate internally, which is sometimes why it takes a bit to get back to you. But if you are sending the same question to multiple people, we're all going to talk and we're all going to know. So make sure you're sending relevant questions to the relevant folks. And also please note that if you have questions around special programs, the primary point of contact to answer those questions is the OSSE support tool. Next slide, please. The Chapter 30 special education regulations require LEA personnel who use physical restraints to be trained and certified in the appropriate use of specific evidence-based techniques. To support LEAs in ensuring appropriate staff training in the use of physical restraints, OSSE is again hosting in-person trainings for certification in the MANT system, which is a comprehensive integrated approach to behavior de-escalation and, if necessary, physical behavior intervention if an individual poses a threat of harm to themselves or others. These trainings are ESSER funded, and as we all know, ESSER funding ends at the end of this fiscal year. So these will be ending after September. This is the last chance to get in on the free trainings. While we will be hosting some trainings at OSSE's offices, we also have some availability for trainings to be provided on site at your school buildings over the summer. There are some requirements and commitments that you as an LEA must make to host on-site trainings, including requirements related to physical space, the available of technology, and participants, both in terms of the types of roles that you are training and in making sure folks' time to participate in the training is dedicated and protected. If you are interested in this for your LEA, please contact me and we can talk a little bit more about the timing availability and the requirements for holding them at your school. You can contact me at christy.weaver-harris@dc.gov. I believe that is my last slide for this school year. Again, I will keep an eye on the questions box. Back to you, LaShonda.
Thanks, Christy. All right, I'll be reviewing our IDEA monitoring reminders and updates. OSSE's transition from the District of Columbia Corrective Action Tracking System, or DC-CATS, to Stepwell will continue to be delayed until the start of the upcoming school year, Please continue to utilize DC-CATS for monitoring activities as appropriate. OSSE will provide further information about data migration processes and the time-detailed training information on the new system. This information will be shared with LEAs in the coming weeks via email and the LEA Look Forward, so be on the lookout for both. During the month of April, OSSE began its monitoring of secondary transition and reevaluation timeliness indicators. Each initial report was released in DC-CATS and is currently in the 30-day correction window. LEAs will receive an initial report of non-compliance in DC-CATS and have 4 days left to make corrections for secondary transition and 11 days left to validate its reevaluation timeliness data. If you have any questions about these monitoring activities, you can reach out to me directly, LaShonda Wilson, at lashonda.wilson@dc.gov. OSSE will be conducting monitoring in the areas of initial evaluation and C2B transition. Please note the time period being monitored and the monitoring begin date for each activity. If you have any questions about these monitoring activities specifically, you can reach out to Karen Morgan Donaldson at karen.morgan-donaldson@dc.gov. Okay, this slide provides information about what compliance reports are currently open in DC CATS. We want to flag for you that prong 2 for both secondary transition and reevaluation timeliness reports are due on June 5th. If you are unsure of the status of your LEA's reports in DC CATS or have any other questions about your LEA's monitoring, please reach out to Deborah Melville at deborah.melville@dc.gov. Okay, and this is our final slide for IDEA monitoring reminders and updates. OSSE will conclude the secondary transition initial file review this week, which began on April 1st, 2024. So please be on the lookout for the release of your LEA's initial secondary transition monitoring report in DC CATS in the upcoming days. LEAs will have 30 days from the release of the initial report to complete correction of non-compliance prior to the review and release of the final report. We will be providing updated guidance within the notification upon release of the report, so be sure to adhere to this information closely for the correction of non-compliance. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me directly at lashonda.wilson@dc.gov. Okay, and with that, we'll turn it over now to Chelsea Greer and Dion McAdoo for transportation reminders and updates. Chelsea?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chelsea Greer. I'm one of the community outreach specialists, along with my partner, Dion McAdoo. Next slide, please. Transportation-based eligibility determinations. Once it has been determined that a student is eligible to receive transportation services, your LEA should immediately submit an official request for transportation via our TRF, Transportation Request Form, in the OSSE IDS system. The Office of the State Superintendent of Education Division of Student Transportation provides round-trip transportation to and from the student's residence of record and school of enrollment. The processing time for a TRF is 3 to 10 business days. A new TRF should be entered by the LEA for the following instances. Of course, a new school year, change of school, extended school year, which is ESY, and change of address or transportation accommodations. I know here in the PRC Center, we do receive a lot of calls from families indicating they need to change their address, but please let them know at the active IEP meeting or the 504 meeting that that change needs to be done by the school or LEA. Next slide, please. Calendar updates. Please be advised that effective February, August 9th, 2024 at 5 p.m., the SY 2024-25 calendar function in IDS will be locked and no further adjustments will be allowed. For the 24-25 school year academic term, calendar changes submitted after that lock date will now require approval. I know oftentimes we do receive requests from the LEAs and we'll tell you to submit that OST ticket. Our department is working on enhancements to provide a more streamlined process. Therefore, OSSE DOT will provide you with the information on the steps and guidelines as that information is forthcoming. Please note that emergency closures or adjustments can be considered by sending a request to our OSSE DOT critical info box. That includes where if you have a water leak, the air is out, please be sure to send those requests to the email. All other calendar adjustments for now must be requested via the OSSE support tool. Next slide, please. And lastly, our OSSE DOT resources. Of course, our Parent Resource Center opens up as early as 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. If you have families, LEAs, or school stakeholders that have questions about our parent stipend program, student transportation family handbook, our reimbursement program, and of course, DOT daily updates. They can log on to the OSSE.dc.gov/service/student transportation email address. And of course, if they have further questions about our parent stipend program support, please send an email to osce.financeDOT@dc.gov. Myself and Dion are available if you have any questions or concerns or comments, and we'll be sure to get back to you. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. All right, I'll turn it over now to Katie Rita and Katie Rita for non-public reminders and updates. Katie?
Thanks, LaShonda. Next slide, please. So these slides are going to look a little similar from what Christy presented earlier, but we're going to focus on how we're going to close out the school year for students in non-public schools. So looking at data systems and continuing operations. Please remember, it is especially necessary to make sure that documentation for students in non-public schools is complete and updated. That includes making sure that everything is everything is updated in special programs and all necessary documentation is uploaded. I'm sure, as all of you know, our non-public students can be incredibly transient. And so you are setting up not only your student for success by having things updated and closed out appropriately, but also the new receiving LEA or new receiving non-public school. As a reminder, make sure that summaries of performance for students graduating with a diploma are included in special programs. And if you do have a student who is graduating over the course of the next couple of months, whether at the end of the school year or at the end of ESY, please make sure that you're considering all necessary closeout for kids that are graduating, including canceling any TRFs for students who will no longer be attending their non-public school and won't be requiring transportation because they graduated next school year. Additionally, things that are not always traditionally housed in special programs like attendance, transcripts, grade promotion, and graduation information should be maintained by your LEA and shared with the non-public school as well, just to make sure that if our students are transferring LEAs or non-public schools, that those records are following them and we don't have students in non-public schools taking classes that they shouldn't, or assuming they are going to be in a grade that they were not promoted to. At the beginning of the school year, every year, we have a lot of confusion for some of our kiddos in non-public schools, and we're hopeful that this year we can make sure that we're keeping good documentation and that we are making sure that we're setting up our students in any new receiving LEAs or non-public schools for success. Additionally, make sure that you're thinking ahead this summer when you are looking for coverage or who's going to be working in your office when it comes to points of contacts. There are some key areas that we interact with LEAs over the summer about with non-public schools, which include enrollment, kiddos who are changing from one non-public school to another non-public school, parents in non-public schools who are looking to get documentation and change in placement or change in location requests. It's imperative that your school have points of contact for OSSE, parents, and non-public schools to reach over the summer. It's okay if it's not your standard point of contact, but it's really necessary for us to have that and not go fishing around one out of office to another out of office to another out of office to figure out who within the LEA we should be reaching out to. So think ahead and think about during which weeks and which months are going to be your point of contact. We certainly know that people are going to be taking breaks and we don't mind contacting more than one person or different people during different parts of the summer months. Next slide, please. In that same sort of sentiment, let's also think about how we're going to be preparing for next year. Please be mindful with data systems and thinking about submitting your TRS, keeping in mind that some students non-public schools will have changed, or some students non-public schools will have been newly assigned. So please make sure that you are remembering that that is might be a necessary step for a student that you maybe hadn't been considering a change for their TRF in previous years. Also make sure that you are working with necessary staff, including staff within your school building, but also non-public school staff, to make sure everyone is up to date on any special programs, trainings, or any questions or concerns about special programs have been addressed over the summer, so you're prepared to work with your non-public school partners. Additionally, in thinking about your programmatic preparation, please make sure that you are thinking of timelines and looking at the full scope of the process that it takes for students to get to non-public schools when you're considering placement decisions and the coordination of the start of the school year. If you send me a change in placement request on August 5th, the likelihood that a student will start at their non-public school before the start of the school year is highly unlikely. Though this happens every year, we're hoping that we can think a little bit more strategically this year in terms of when you want to coordinate with us. If you have questions, you can always reach out. Additionally, you should be reaching out to your non-public school partners, making sure that you're strengthening any student monitoring or oversight so you're prepared for the school year for progress monitoring, and that you're reviewing all of our relevant guidance, making sure that you have POCs that are ready to support non-public school related questions. If you have questions about closing out the school year, or you are thinking strategically about how you want to prepare for next school year, we are always available to be good thought partners for you and making sure that we are doing our best to plan for our kids. So feel free to reach out to me at katie.rita@dc.gov. I'm going to go on to the next two slides. I'll be presenting on behalf of Sharon Powell of the non-public monitoring team. So if you have any questions about the content of these two slides, please feel free to reach out to Sharon Powell at sharon.powell@dc.gov, and she'd be happy to answer any of your questions about the slides. So the next two slides speak to a new online incident reporting tool that LEAs will have access to conduct your review of incident reports that are created by non-public schools within QuickBase. So this is going to replace the earlier application where LEAs had only view-only access of the incident reports that were uploaded by non-public schools. The hope is that with this new report, that LEAs are able to review these reports in a timely manner and complete any necessary steps. OSSE still will be periodically reviewing the reports, so that way we can engage with LEAs and non-public schools on strengthening responses to any of the incidents that are uploaded. Next slide, please. So this information and the role of incident reporting manager should have been communicated to LEA representatives in a letter sent by OSSE on May 3rd. And it outlines sort of the responsibilities and roles for the new incident report manager, which is a function of this new updated tool. The responsibilities for the new manager are listed below in the bullet points. Note that there will be trainings for the use of the tool, the reporting, and any requirements that will be made available to all the data managers. And this will be announced via the LEA Look Forward. Obviously, this is our last LEA POC webinar of the school year, so any additional announcements regarding this will be made at the beginning of next school year, so be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out to Sharon Powell directly, and she'd be happy to answer your questions. Thanks, LaShonda.
Thank you, Katie. All right. Moving right along, we're going into our teaching and learning reminders and updates, and I'll pass it over now to Byul Yem for that review. Byul?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Byul Yem. I am the Instructional Systems Specialist for Special Education here at Division of Teaching and Learning. I have a few updates on dyslexia, secondary transition, and the Summer Social-Emotional Learning Symposium. Next slide, please. All right, so here's some new updates and reminders for school year 2024 dyslexia legislation requirements. So under the legislation, especially for on the professional development and screening section. These are the three different requirements that are asked for educators and LEAs to complete, which is first, awareness training on reading difficulties for all LEA educators, and kindergarten through second grade educators completing professional development on reading difficulties. And the last is screening of K-2 students 3 times each academic year with family notifications for those identified as being at risk for reading difficulties. So to support these legislation, currently we have dyslexia awareness modules that are live on our OSSE LMS geared towards for pre-K, K through 5, and adolescent to adults. And also additional K-2 training will be released in June on screener data analysis, deep dive into rapid automatic naming, and high leverage instructional practices for support. And also just a reminder that end of year screening will either now take place or will take place. And the template for end of year training screening has been posted online on our OSSE website. All right, next slide, please. All right, to support the LEAs in the adoption of science-based literacy materials, OSSE has provided these materials. So first, high-quality instructional materials, which is short for HQIM, for science-based literacy programs grade K through 5. OSSE has released a list of science-based literacy programs for K through 5. And also, OSSE has released a HQIM, high-quality instructional materials, rubric and guidance document to support LEAs in evaluating Tier 1 literacy curricular materials for grade K through 5. And last, interested LEAs serving grade K through 5 can apply to participate in OSSE's HQIM Community of Practice. And all of these resources that I mentioned can be found in the next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so as I mentioned, these are all the resources that I mentioned before that you could find. The rubric, HQIM rubric, guidance document, community of practice, the application link, as well as the Science of Reading Asynchronous course link, which is available on OSSE LMS. And just a quick information, the OSSE will host office hours on Wednesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. starting on June 5th, 2024. And if you have any additional questions in regards to dyslexia trainings or the science of reading related information, please reach out to Dustin Tamsin at dustin.tamsin@dc.gov. All right, next slide, please. All right, this is the last reminder before we dismiss for summer. The secondary transition community of practice is still going on, and it will continue during the summer. So the next one that's coming up is on May 21st, and there's going to be one each month until September 10th. And all sessions are Tuesdays from 10:30 to 12 p.m. And you can find the link for the registration on the slide as well. And if you have any more questions, please contact Kalicia Beatty at kalicia.beatty@dc.gov. Next slide, please. All right, so this is the new information. There's going to be a symposium to advance social and emotional learning for students and staff during coming up next month on June 12th, Wednesday, from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at the Gallaudet University's Kellogg Conference Center. This convening aims to bring together educators and stakeholders from DC Public School, public charter schools, and partner agencies to launch DC's social and emotional learning standards. So this event will provide opportunities to attend and lead skill building workshops, network, and learn about best practices happening across the city. So again, for this information, you could find the registration link in the slide. And if you have any more questions, please reach out to Jessica Dulay at jessica.dulay@dc.gov. Next slide, please. All right, again, the last reminder to sign up for our Teaching and Learning PD Bulletin that goes out every month month. You'll find all these informations that I just shared in our newsletter that goes out monthly, so that you could hopefully, and we welcome you all. We welcome you all the time and every day, even throughout the summer, that you join us at our learning opportunities. All right, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Buell. Okay. And now to round things out, we have a few announcements and reminders. First up, we have the Early Childhood Community of Practice.
Good morning. This is Dawn Hilton, the 619 coordinator here at OSSE. As a reminder, the Early Childhood Special Education Community of Practice final session for the 2023-24 school year will occur on Wednesday, May 22nd from 10 to 11. We will discuss data tracking and reporting requirements for early childhood special education in the areas of reasonable efforts, the initial provision of specialized instruction, and child outcome summaries. To register, the registration is open to anyone serving our 3 to 5 year olds in special education programs. We look forward to seeing you at our next session. If you have any questions prior to the session, please email me at dawn.hilton1@dc.gov. Next slide. All right. My second reminder is about COS. The COS exit data is due at the end of the current school year. Please submit all exit data by July 1st, 2024 in special programs. LEAs should collect and report COS exit data for every child receiving special education services who will be exiting their preschool program at the end of this school year. This includes pre-K students who are promoted to kindergarten for the upcoming school year, any children who have turned 6 years old, for any preschooler who is no longer eligible for special education services, and for those who have moved out of state. And this also includes children who are now homeschooled or enrolled in a private school. COS entry data was migrated from DC CATS to special programs this past November. So when you are completing the COS exit summary in special programs, the form will only display rating scores that were pulled from DC CATS. You will not see any of the summaries in the domains, and this was intentional, so just know that. On this slide, I have included a list of available resources that includes the training that OSSE provided in November. It's a recorded training, and it will show you how to submit COS data in special programs, as well as our user manual, and then a quick guide to COS. If you have any specific questions related to COS, please email osce.cosfaq@dc.gov. And as Christy mentioned earlier, if you are experiencing issues with special programs, you must submit an OST ticket to have those issues resolved. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dawn. All right. If by chance you happen to miss a webinar, please be sure to visit our webpage for the LEA SPED POC monthly webinar series updates. So we'll have also not only the webinar available, but also the PDF version of the slides available on the site. Generally, we have that updated and ready to go 1 week from the live webinar. If for any reason you do not see a webinar and PDF from the prior broadcast up on the site, please be sure to reach out to me, LaShonda Wilson, at lashonda.wilson at dc.gov, but otherwise it should be available within 1 week. Again, you can also watch previous webinars and download any training resources and materials from prior webinars as well, directly from that PDF link available on the site. And this brings us to the conclusion of our 2023-2024 webinar series. We'll be gearing up for our 2024-25 school year webinar series. So be on the lookout for more information on that in the OSSE LEA Look Forward. If you have not already, please be sure to subscribe to OSSE's LEA Look Forward. In order to do that, you'll contact OSSE Communications at osse.communications@dc.gov, and be sure to provide your first name, last name, and email address. All right, you know the drill now. This might be the most important survey of this school year. Please tell us how we did, not only today, but also overall for this LEA SPED POC webinar series. Let us know what's worked for you, what you could have used more information on throughout the school year. And in order to do so, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen from your camera phone within your mobile device, or navigate to the survey from the link in your handout as well. And that link is shown here, but if you've downloaded the PDF, you can click directly on the link in the PDF. In the meantime, we'll take a pause here in order to hear your questions. So I'll turn it over to Christy. Christy, do we have any questions from the group?
I have no questions today. Are you guys okay? If anybody has any wonderings or questions, go ahead and pop them in now, and we'll do our best to address them in the next couple of minutes. But thank you for engaging this. We know it's been a challenging year with the shift to special programs, and we appreciate your engagement and your patience, especially during these webinars.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christy. I agree. We'll give it just a couple more minutes. If you have questions, please pop them into the questions box now. We've got some time, so we want to make sure we answer any questions you have for closeout of the school year. I see we've got one question that's just come into the chat. We'll give it a couple more minutes.
All right, some of the questions that we have gotten, there's a question about when the deadline is for completing dyslexia training. I don't know that we actually went over that. For any questions related to dyslexia, you're gonna wanna reach out to Dustin Tamsin, and I will send his, it's Dustin.Tamsin, that's Tamsin @dc.gov. All TRF deadlines for next school year. Let me.
Hey, good morning. This is Chelsea. Are you referring to the SY 24-25 school year?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. August the 9th, 2024, and we'll be sure to send out updates throughout the summer. So don't fret. We'll make sure we'll send those out updates to you.
Yep. All right. We also have a question about guidance for combined classrooms for dyslexia training. I'm also waiting on that guidance. I will do my best to push internally to get some response on that and make sure there's a communication that goes out.
Okay, coming back, I don't see any additional questions that have popped into the chat. So I think we are good to go. All right, well, we'll give you all some time back on your schedule for today. And with that, we wish you a fantastic end of the school year. And we also submit to you OSSE's appreciation for your continued hard work in serving our DC students with disabilities. And also, again, say thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.